Dzień dobry, witamy serdecznie dzisiaj na naszej pogadance, webinarze, dosyć unikalnym, ponieważ w Polsce nie tak często pokazujemy rozwiązania związane z organizacją produkcji oprogramowania w tym etapie wydawania i orkiestracji aplikacji. Ja nazywam się Tomasz Surmacz, jestem wspólnie z kolegami naszymi Piotrkiem Banaszewskim z Microfocus Polska oraz z kolegą Sylwianem Botanem, który będzie prowadził dzisiejszą prezentację i demonstrację. Szczególnie zachęcam wszystkich do zadawania pytań, dlatego ponieważ mamy tylko w jedną stronę komunikację, mamy tutaj możliwość zadawania pytań w panelu. Mogą Państwo zadawać pytania, będziemy się postarali na nie odpowiedzieć. Mamy również nagrywaną tą sesję, jeśli ktoś chciałby przekazać innym współpracownikom link, to później będzie mógł przekazać. No i mamy również w sekcji załączników kopię tej prezentacji, jak i również inne materiały poświęcone rozwiązaniom, jak i poświęcone wdrożeniom. To wszystko, jeśli chodzi o wstęp i rozpoczynamy. Piotrze, oddaję Ci głos, żeby przedstawić portfolio takie szersze Microfocusa związane z DevOpsem.
Dzień dobry Państwu, Piotr Banaszewski, tak jak Tomasz mi przedstawił. Dzisiaj będziemy chcieli porozmawiać, tak jak wspomnieliśmy, o orkiestracji release'ów. To jest bardzo króciutka agenda, najpierw kilka słów o firmie, później informacja o produktach, najważniejsze punkty i funkcje, jeśli chodzi o release control, to samo jeśli chodzi o deployment automation. Sesja demo, na którą przeznaczyliśmy, myślę, że około 40 minut oraz kluczowe wnioski. Bardzo króciutko o firmie Microfocus. Firma funkcjonuje od wielu lat na rynku, jest jedną z największych firm, jeśli chodzi o produkcję oprogramowania na świecie i w Europie. Firma działa w kilku podstawowych obszarach bezpieczeństwa, czyli w obszarze analityki big data, w obszarze zarządzania środowiskami i utrzymywania środowisk hybrydowych oraz automatyzacji, orkiestracji w tym temacie oraz w obszarze DevOpsowym, czyli w obszarze zarządzania cyklem wytwórczym aplikacji. Tutaj bardzo króciutko pokazaliśmy na tym slajdzie nasze portfolio, czyli miejsca, w których wspieramy naszych klientów w obszarze DevOpsowym, zaczynając od zarządzania projektami, portfelem projektów, zarówno jeśli chodzi o aplikacje, jak i dowolnych projektów inwestycyjnych, marketingowych, covidowych, które są prowadzone w organizacjach, poprzez zbieranie wymagań klientów, poprzez continuous integration, continuous delivery, nie kończąc na monitoringu integracji z systemami service managementowymi. Dzisiaj skupiamy się na obszarze release management, release orchestration. Jak widzicie Państwo, nasze portfolio tutaj jest bardzo szerokie i mówimy dzisiaj o tym drobnym kawałku. Głównym prezenterem dzisiaj będzie Sylvain Boton, nasz kolega z Francji. Sylvain, the stage is yours, so please continue.
Okay, hi all. So I'm Sylvain Buton. I'm a DevOps solution architect, and I'm very excited to be with you today to talk about the Microfocus application release orchestration platform. So before having a look in detail on the platform, so let's first talk about what are the software lifecycle disruptions we are facing today. So today, there are three major evolutions. The first one is about the methodology, the next one is about the application, and the last one is about infrastructure. So let's talk first about the methodology. What are the challenges your organization are currently facing? So a desire to transition from traditional project management approaches to modern practices requires organizational transformation. And you know that the pressures to deliver more quickly, we can say to move fast without breaking things, and to deliver more with less requires a fundamental shift in application release management approaches. So in this context, how microfocus helps? So microfocus increase release process efficiency by integrating all your release-centric technologies and providing a standard, a secure and repeatable release process that manages application releases, for sure according to business priorities and release policies. Let's talk about the next disruption. It's about applications. So again, what are the challenges today about application? So in your organization, you probably have legacy and modern applications need to be released in conjunction with each other. And the lack of coordination, the lack of control, the lack of insight and dependency tracking across multiple disconnected systems. I'm talking about the mainframe, distributed, mobile systems, and the environment significantly increase the release risk. So again, in this context, how microfocus helps? So we help customers, we help organizations to deliver high quality, valuable software in an efficient, fast, and repeatable and reliable manner. And we do it to remove the risk and increasing the to increase the application release velocity. The last description we are currently facing nowadays is about the infrastructures. So what are the challenges of the organization in front of the management of the infrastructures? So the organizations need to support releases onto multiple infrastructure types and ecosystems, including mainframe, physical infrastructure, virtual infrastructure, and now probably using containers and cloud infrastructures. And when you want to address this kind of infrastructure, you have to put in place the same repeatable process in place to be able to deploy onto those infrastructures. So how microfocus help in this context of infrastructure management? So we deliver the high quality, valuable software in an efficient, fast, repeatable, and reliable manner across any infrastructure. I mean from mainframe, from distributed system, from mobile, based on physical server, virtual server in the cloud, and using container technology, for instance, based on Docker and this kind of technology. So we are able to support all those kind of technologies, of infrastructures. So now let's go to the solution itself. So the microfocus application release orchestration solutions are based on two tools. The first one is release control. So this solution helps you to plan, to track, to monitor all your releases. The next one is deployment automation. So this solution helps you to orchestrate your deployment across all your environments. So with release control, you plan, you track, you monitor, and release control call deployment automation to execute the deployment. So with those two solutions, we are able to address your application release orchestration in your organization. So let's have a look now on release control first. So as I just mentioned, release control enables organization to plan, to control, to track, to orchestrate all your release processes. And those release processes can contain mainframe application or application hosted on distributed systems as Windows, Linux, Unix. And release control help you to plan and to track from the beginning of the release. So when you define the scope of your release, when you decide which application will be part of the release, so from this point to the deployment into productions. And we provide calendar, helping you to track and monitor all the activities related to your release processes. And we provide always the ability to define approval through the release processes. So how do we plan and track releases using release control? We plan and we track activities using release train. A release train is a calendar object helping you to manage your deployment based on a release package. So in a release train, you can manage multiple application deployment, and for each application deployment, we use a release package dedicated to a specific application version. So in one release train, you can have multiple release packages. You can want to deploy multiple applications. Using a release train, you can define different phases. Out of the box, there are 4 phases. You can see the green one, the blue one, the yellow one, and the red one. The phases in green is the time where you define the scope of the train. So you define which application will be part of this train. The blue phase addresses the development phase. So when you are in blue phase, it means that your development team is working to publish a new application version. The orange phase is about the QA time. So it means if you have a look on the June train, the QA time is planned to start in May. It means that the development are now over and you are ready to test all your applications belonging to the train. And the last phase, the red one, is about the go live. So this is the timeline for which you plan to move all your application version into production. So this is the 4 phases you can see on the screenshot here. And for each train, for instance, the June train, you can see 2 lines. The first line is about the planification of the phases, and the small line just under the big line is about the actual. So you can see for the June train that the small green line, I remind you that the green is about the definition of the scope of the train, is behind the schedule. So we plan to close this phase in March, and we are in June and is not yet completed. So it means we are behind the schedule. It means the train is late. So this is the information we provide about the time line for each release train. The other information you can see in this screenshot is about the gate. So between each phase, you can see an arrow, and this arrow is about the definition of a gate. So what is a gate? A gate is a point in the workflow where exit criteria may be validated and approved before the release train can move to the next stage, to the next phase. So this is a point of validation before moving to the next phase of the train. So this is a gate. And you can always have the ability to implement milestones. So milestones are the blue diamond you can see, for instance, for a train, and a milestone. It's a date-based activity against which progress can be measured. So it means that milestones are typically interim deliverables within a life cycle stage. Milestones can be, for instance, I have to deliver the release note for the end of October, or I have to inform the end user before end of March that a new application version will be deployed into production. So this is this kind of information you can materialize using the milestones. So this is the release train. This is the top object in release control. And as I told you, in each release train, you can define release packages. So a release packages is scoped by application version. So associated to one release packages, there is one application version. So if you want to deploy multiple application versions, you have to create multiple release packages, and you have to associate all those release packages to the release train. Which kind of information you have to specify at the release package level? This is a screenshot we can see here. For sure, you have to define which environment you want to use to deploy your application. So you have to define your environment pipeline. So here in the screenshot, we can see there is two environments: integration and production. So you can use this screen to book environments where you plan to deploy an application version. The other information you have to define at the release package level, you have to define the team who is responsible for the deployment of this release package. You have to define as well how to deploy this application version, which kind of activity I want to execute to deploy those application version. Those activities can be manual activities or automated activities. And if those activities are automated activities, from release control, you will call our solution deployment automation to execute those deployment activity against the servers. For sure, we are talking about release management. So we provide lots of dashboards allowing you to track and to monitor the release processes activities. And in those dashboards, for each dashboard, we provide lots of KPI, lots of key performance indicators. And we provide about 50 ready-to-use reports to help make impactful business decisions and to accelerate the delivery. So out of the box, there are a lot of dashboards and reports. And we give you the ability to build your own report and your own dashboard. You can build report and dashboard graphically. You don't need to write SQL queries to implement a report. You can do it graphically to help you to monitor all the release activities. For sure, release control helps you to track, to monitor your releases, but as I mentioned earlier, it helps you as well to execute some activities. And to execute those activities, we provide out-of-the-box plugins to help you to interact with your ecosystem. So those plugins can be split in different categories. The first one is about the request providers. It helps you to be integrating with your change management systems. So the change management system can be Jira, can be ServiceNow, for instance, can be Octane. Octane is the micro-focus solutions to address DevOps and agile development. I will talk to you a little bit later about Octane because I will use it in my demo. So we provide the ability to integrate with your change management system. We provide the ability to connect release control with execution providers. So for the demo, we use deployment automation for sure, but we provide the ability to be integrated with Jenkins or Noyo from Broadcom, for instance. So just keep in mind that we provide plugin out of the box, but you can build your own plugin. You can use our marketplace to download plugins developed by the community or to upload the plugin you have implemented. And for sure, you can update the existing plugin to add more feature if needed. And the last point, but it's a very strong capacity of our solutions. So you have to know that release control is based on another micro-focus solution called Solution Business Manager, SBM. And SBM is a workflow and orchestration engine. So it means that release control uses this engine to manage your releases. But it offers as well the ability to implement by yourself other business processes using the same platform. So it means in this platform, for sure, you will have release control, but you can implement other business process, for instance, to address human resources needs by implementing, for instance, the management of employee time off, the management of the process of employee onboarding. You can use this platform not only for IT needs, but for all businesses you have in the company. So just keep in mind this because it's a very powerful platform we offer to support release control and giving you the ability to implement by yourself this kind of other business processes. So now let's talk about deployment automation. So deployment automation enable repeatable and reliable and audit compliant processes to simplify application deployments. So what it means, using deployment automation, you are able to deploy stuff, to deploy things on target servers. And it allows you to reduce the risk and to increase the velocity of the delivery across all the environment of your delivery pipeline. If in your delivery pipeline you have 5 logical environments, and associated to each environment you have 5 or 10 servers, deployment automation helps you to deploy your application versions against all those servers belonging to those logical environments. So to summarize, so with deployment automation, we deploy artifacts. Those artifacts can be binary files, can be static content, can be middleware, can be update of system updates, can be database changes, can be configuration of a VMware, for instance, and we can as well deploy the infrastructure itself. So you can create a server in AWS, you can create a VMware as well. So with deployment automation, we deploy things on target servers. And how do we do this? We do this by using deployment processes. So when you want to deploy something somewhere, you have to implement a deployment process based on plugins we provide out of the box. For sure, as well, we provide templates just to help you to quickly set up those deployment processes. And where we deploy those application versions, those infrastructures, we deploy it on the target servers, and the target server can be physical server in the cloud, virtual server can be containers. So, with deployment automation, we talk about application and infrastructure deployment using deployment processes to address a deployment against a physical server or virtual server or a server hosted in the cloud or based on containers. So this is what deployment automation do. So this is here a sample of a deployment process. So we start with the start step, and we can see the first step is to download a file, for instance. Then if this file is hosted on a web server, we can stop the web server, so it can be a Tomcat server or IIS server. Then we deploy the application, and then we start the application and check that the application is up and running. So this is the main part of the deployment process. But you can see on the side, you can have other applications not related to the deployment process itself. For instance, in the beginning, before downloading the file, you can check if you have enough space on the target server. Check disk space. You can check if there is a request for change, a RFC, in your system. So you can check in ServiceNow, for instance, if you have a request for change authorized for this deployment. And if you are deploying an application on a VMware, you see on the left side, you can snapshot the VMware. You can disable the monitoring, for instance. You can remove the application of the load balancer. So you can implement all the activities you need. So deployment automation, for sure, it's about deployment, but not only. We are able to implement the rollback of your application when your deployment failed or when the test associated to the new application version failed. We are able to automate the infrastructure. As I mentioned, we can create VMware, we can create a server on AWS, on Azure, and so on and so on. So you can manage infrastructure as well. So yes, so we can orchestrate deployment servers, the server deployments on the cloud using cloud orchestration to implement, for instance, the deployment of the application, maybe one or two instance on Azure and one or two instance for the same application on AWS. So you can manage this kind of mix using a deployment automation. And once your application is deployed, you can call an automated test solution to execute tests on the application you have just deployed. And Micro Focus offers those kind of automated test solutions. So as you probably know, with Micro Focus, we have solutions to automate functional testing, to automate performance testing, and to automate security testing. So we can call all those testing using deployment automations. And the deployment automation can be as well useful for the development team to help them to create their environments, to make their own development. We can use deployment automation as well to update the CMDB once the application is deployed into production, for instance. You can use deployment automation to update the configuration of a specific server, to manage remediation, and to trigger a disaster recovery. So all those capacities are available when you use deployment automation. So how do we implement the deployment process using deployment automation? So to build a deployment automation, we provide easy-to-use graphical editor, helping you to design those deployment processes. So here you can see in the central pane the graphical editors. This is the process designer. On the left side, you can see the different plugins. I told you we offer about 100 plugins out of the box, helping you to implement your deployment processes. We have, for instance, a plugin for Oracle. We have a plugin for Docker. We have a plugin for WebSphere. We have a plugin for IAS, for Tomcat. So we have the plugin for 100 technology. And for each plugin, we provide steps. So for instance, if we have a look on the Tomcat plugin, we offer several steps. And steps are, for instance, stop Tomcat, start Tomcat, upload the file into Tomcat. So for each plugin, we provide a lot of steps. And when you want to define a deployment process, you just have to drag and drop the step from the left pane to the central pane to build your logic. And for each step in the central pane, you have to define properties. So a property is the way that the step will be executed. For instance, if you are using a step to start a Tomcat instance, in the property for sure, you have to define what is the address of your Tomcat, what is the login, what is the password, and so on and so on. So for each step, you can use property to define the content of the execution for your step. And when you define a property, you can fill manually the value, but you can use as well parameters. So it means for the same step, based on the value of the parameter, you can use the same step to deploy against production, integration, and UAT, for instance, but just only the value of the parameters will be changed and will be used depending where you want to deploy your application version. And last point, but it's very important, when you update, when you modify an existing deployment process, deployment automation automatically saved and version this process. So it means that in deployment automation, you have the traceability of all the versions of the deployment process itself you already used in the past. And you are able to go back to a previous version you use for a specific deployment process. So this is a very powerful feature. So let's talk about the model. So you can build by yourself your own deployment process, but you can use as well templates. So we provide out of the box several templates helping you to create the deployment process to address your needs. Here, for instance, we have a deployment process to address container components. So it means based on a Docker component, for instance. You can have a model to deploy a database component and another model to deploy a web component. And you can note that here you can use the same process to deploy against all the environments if you want, but you can create a difference based on the name of the environment. So if you have a look on the database component, for instance, you can see if it is dev, int, or UAT environments, okay, it's not a problem. I can delete the schema, recreate the schema, and not test data. But otherwise, you see the other path, so otherwise means probably for production environment, you cannot, for sure, you cannot delete the schema. So if you want to deploy against the production, you will do only an update of the database, loading the changes by running specific SQL scripts. So just keep in mind we provide models, and you can use the same model to address the deployment for all your environments. When you define, when you design a deployment process, I just mentioned that you can use parameters. And we provide a central place to manage all your parameters for all your application versions, for all your environments. So it means when you create your deployment process, when you design it, you just specify the name of the parameters. And here in this specific place, you can see for the name of an application, you can see the name of environment, and you can see here all the parameters defined for this specific application. And here in this place, you can define the value for each parameter for each environment. And when a deployment will be executed on this specific environment, the deployment automation will automatically take the value here in this central place. With all the value for the parameter are automatically versioned as well by deployment automation. So it means that we are able to find a previous value you use for a specific parameter. For traceability purpose, we offer this capacity. So this is the pipeline now. So it means now that for your application, you have already designed the deployment process, and now you want to use this across a pipeline. So a pipeline is a set of environments. So in this screenshot, you can see there are 3 environments associated to this pipeline: integration, UAT, and production. You can see in the left top corner the name of the application. So here we are talking about the Ring2Park online application. In the left bottom part of the screen, you can see the components. So it means that this application, Ring2Park Online, has 3 components. The first one is Ring2Park DB, so this is a database component. The next one is Ring2Park middleware, and the last one is Ring2Park web. So this is the frontal of the application. So it means that for each component, you can deploy each component separately, or you can create a snapshot and deploy all components simultaneously. What we can see in the central pane, we can see the inventory. And how do we read the information? The DB component, Ring2Park DB. So we see that the version deployed on the integration environment is 1.0.2. The version in UAT is 1.0.2, and in production is it the same version. So this is the inventory helping you to know which version is currently deployed on a specific environment. So you know the reality, you know which version is already on your target environment using this inventory. Another important topic is for each logical environment, for sure you can have multiple servers. For instance, for the production environment, there are 3 servers associated to the production environment for the Ring2Park online component, the web part of the application. And here you can see 1 up to 3. So it means that for the production environment, currently there is only 1 server that is up to date with the expected version. That means that 2 servers associated to the production environment are not up to date with the expected version. So to fix that, you can run an update only for those 2 servers to be sure that all servers belonging to production have the expected application version. So this is a very powerful feature to help you to track and to understand the content of your servers associated to each logical environment. So in the previous slide, I talked about one application, how to deploy one application having multiple components. But most of the time, you have to orchestrate a deployment for multiple applications in the same time. So with deployment automation, we provide the ability to deploy multiple applications. So you have to build the deployment process, as you can see in the screenshot, but you can implement a deployment process to deploy in series or in parallel. So it depends the use case you want to implement using deployment automation. But just keep in mind that with deployment automation, we can deploy simultaneously not only one application, but as well multiple applications. And for sure, to help you to provide more visibility, to enforce the traceability. We provide a lot of reports out of the box, helping you to track the deployment activity. So you can, if you have a look in the past, you can see the successful deployment or the deployment with failures. In black, you can see black circle in the calendar view. So it means you can define blackout period preventing from deploying an application or preventing from deploying in production, for instance, maybe because we are in December, this is the end of the year, and I want to secure my production environment, so I don't want to deploy any application in production in December. So you can define such blackout period using deployment automation. And as I mentioned earlier, so we provide about 100 plugins out of the box. You need those plugins to build your deployment processes. So here, this is a list of the plugins we have out of the box. I think the list is not complete. So as for release control, you can, with deployment automation, you can build your own plugin. You can share it on our marketplace, or you can download a plugin from the marketplace, and you can as well update existing plugins. So now that's it for the slideshow. So I will jump into a demo. So before starting my demo, I will just explain what will be the use case I will illustrate with my demo. So my demo is hosted on a VMware. Okay. I will have 4 environments, 2 for CI, for continuous integration, and 2 for CD, continuous deployment. So for this demo, I will use an application called Ring2Park. This is the application I want to deploy. This application is a web application using a Jetty server, and the database is hosted on a SQL server. So I will start my demo using RC. So RC means release control. And using RC, I will create a release train. And I will define the scope of the train, and I will start the development phase. So starting the development phase means that as a developer, I will use an ADE, I will use IntelliJ for the demo to update an application. Then I will store the modification into a version management system. For my demo, I will use Subversion. The commit into Subversion will trigger automatically Jenkins to build this new application, to build the binary. And Jenkins will use Maven to build the binaries. Jenkins will create automatically a release package into release control, and Jenkins will automatically store this new application version into deployment automation to be ready to be deployed. So DA is deployment automation. So this is all the activity performed by Jenkins. Now, as an environment manager, I will use release control to book the integration environment to prepare the deployment into the specific environment. Then, as a deployment engineer, I will associate a defect managed by Octane. So just a few words about Octane. So I remind you that Octane is a micro-focused solution to address DevOps and agile development, increasing the team collaborations. So it means Octane allows you to create epic feature, user story, defects, and so on, and help you to manage your backlog, allocating activities to your team members through releases and sprints, for instance. And Octane, moreover, allows you to manage your quality by integrating multiple testing types and frameworks, such as manual test, gapping test, and automatic test. And Octane, last but not least, Octane collects pipeline run and automated test run result from a CI server from Jenkins. So I will use Octane in this demo. So Octane, if you are not aware about what is Octane, you can have a look on our corporate websites. And Octane is more powerful, more scalable, more open to third-party tools, other tools like Jira, for instance. So as a deployment engineer, I will associate a defect created in Octane to my release package, and I will relay the release package to the train, and I will deploy this new application version to the integration environment. Once the application will be deployed, I will update Octane to specify that the application, a new application version, fixed this specific defect. Then I will go to a gate, and I will have an approver approving the move to the production, approving the deployment of this specific application version to production. And again, as a deployment engineer, I will trigger the deployment into production. So this is the use case I will illustrate now. This is an end-to-end use case starting from the development till the deployment into production. So let me share my laptop. To start the so if everything works fine, you should be able to see my screen now. Microfocus guys, just tell me if it is not working because I cannot see the BrightTalk panel now. So, yes, so this is yes, okay. This is release control. This is where you manage all your releases. So here you can see we have already different release trains: Jazz, Aurora, October 20, and so on and so on. And for the demo, I will create a new release train. So when you create a train, you have to provide a title for the train. You can for sure associate a description for the train. And I already mentioned that out of the box, each train has 4 phases: the planning phase, the development phase, the QA phase, and the production phase. So you can use predefined date to define those phases, or you can enter manually the value for each different phase. So let's cut the train. So the train is a top-level object. So it means that in each train, you can have several release packages. So here in the Overview tab, you can see the release packages. But for sure, it's now empty because I have just created the train. And I'm in the planning phase. So in the planning phase, I'm discussing with all the team to understand which application will be ready to be part of this train. Between each phase, you can define a gate. I remind you that a gate is a point in a workflow to validate, to approve before moving the train to the next stage. So for my demo, I will add only a gate for the QA phase. So that means, for instance, you see all QA tests are okay. So this is the gate helping the QA manager, for instance, to check, to approve that all applications belonging to the train were successfully tested. So this is a QA gate. We can define as well milestones. So I remind you the definition of a milestone. So milestones are date-based activities against which progress can be measured. So it can be intermediate deliverables, as release notes, as end-user communication. So this is this kind of activity you can track with the milestones. A gate can block the train. A milestone cannot block the train. And I plan to, I have to specify due date for the train and an approval for due date for the milestone, sorry, and an approval for this milestones. So when we talk about release management, one of the important parts is the audit capability, is which kind of feature we provide to track all the action related to all the objects managed by release control. So in the history tab, you can check and you can have access on detail on each change that happened to the release train. You know who made the change, you know when it was made, you know the previous value of an attribute, the new value, and so on. So this is for traceability purpose. We have this feature available. And for instance, you can add as well your train into a quick link into your favorite. So I would say that for this train, now the scope is defined and the development can start. So I move the train to the development phase. So here you can see there are currently no release packages associated. We see the train is at the development phase. So it means now the development team will work to fix a specific issue for a specific applications. So the application you want to fix is this one. So this is a Ring to Park application. This is a web application, and the plan. I connect to this application. So the plan is to fix this help page because here demo is not the expected message. So I need to fix this page. So that means that the QA team using Octane created a defect. This is the ID of the defect, 73006, with wrong help message. So this is Octane. I don't plan to go in detail in Octane today. And if I have a look on this defect, I can see for sure information about the defect itself. I can see the severity. I can see the release of the applications, release alpha. I can see the sprint associated to this defect, sprint alpha 1. And I can see here that now the fix for this defect is not yet deployed into production and into integration. So you can see here, no. So it means that as a QA member, I check on Octane and I can understand that, okay, I know there is a defect, but it's not yet deployed into integration and production. So I'm not able to start my testing activities. So that's it for Octane. So we know the content of Octane. We know the application. So here, so let me log out the application. Here we will use the Jenkins to build the new application versions. And Jenkins will create automatically in release control a release package and will store automatically in deployment automation the new binary. So let's build this new application binary using an IDE. So you can use Eclipse, you can use Visual Studio. So for my demo, I will use IntelliJ to update the source code of my applications. So this is my application, Ring to Park Online. This is the help page I want to fix, help.jsp. Here, this is demo, Ring to Park, blah, 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 blah. So here, I will fix the message for the help page. I will add webinar. So as a developer, now I commit my modification. So here, this is the commit message. So you can see I will fix the defect 73006 to address the user story 72001. So this is IDs for Octane object. So now I can commit the modification into the source control system. For my demo, I use subversions, but at the end, but for sure you can use Git on any other version management system we provide. Last topic about the ADE. You can see here on the bottom of the screen our plugins for Octane. So here we browse the Octane defect wrong help message, and the developer can access the details of the defect through the IDE. So let's have a look on Jenkins now. So automatically Jenkins started a job. Let's have a look on details. So Jenkins is automatically triggered by the version management systems. So it means that in my use case, it's automatically triggered by subversion. And you see here that Jenkins is using Maven to create a new application version. So I'm creating a new application version for my Green to Park application. Then creating release packages into release control. So Jenkins creates automatically the release package into release control. And the last step is about storing. Here you can see deployment automation, SDA. So Jenkins stored into deployment automation the new binaries just built by Jenkins and Maven. So now the job in Jenkins is over. So let's have a look on what happens on release control and on deployment automation. First, go back to release control. At the release train level, nothing happens. So I close the release train. But if I have a look on the release packages, so let's go back to Jenkins just to show you the build ID. So the build ID of Jenkins is 140. Okay. So just to understand the situation. So here you can see in release today, I have created in release, Jenkins has just created automatically a release package containing the result of the build 140. We will have a look in detail on this release package in a few minutes. So this is what happened in release control. And now what happened in deployment automation. So this is Ring to Park online application defined in deployment automation. In deployment automation for this application, I have three components: database, middleware, and the web part of the application. If I have a look on the web part, if I go to version, I see here that Jenkins, I just created the version 140, and you can see a status, so it means it has been built by Jenkins. So here, this is in deployment automation. If I have a look on this version, you can see here the files. So this is today, 13th of October. So Jenkins, using Maven, built a WAR file containing the update of the source code and stored this new application version into deployment automation. So it's just a storage. We have not started the deployment against integration and production. We have just stored into deployment automation the new application version and is ready to be deployed. This is the use case I implement today, but from Jenkins, you can as well trigger the deployment into the integration environment using Jenkins. But for my demo today, I will kick off the deployment against integration manually. But just keep in mind, it can be automatically from Jenkins. So let's go back to our release control to discuss about the release package. So let's open the release package. So which kind of information we have here. So we know the name of the application linked to Park Online. So I remind you, it was created by Jenkins automatically. We know the name of the application. We know the name of the application version, so 140. We know the team responsible for the deployment of this application. So this is the release engineers team, and there is a specific member called a Dan developer. We know the type of the release. This is a major release. So you can define the different type of releases. So it can be major, minor, emergency release, and associated to each type, you have a specific pipeline. So it means for a major type, you can have a pipeline called fast track. What is the fast track pipeline? The fast track deployment path. So it's a path using integration and production environments. So it means that using Jenkins, we know that we created this release package, and for this kind of fix, we will use a fast track, deploying first on integration, then into production. And for instance, as an environment manager, I can use this screen to check if there is other application version deployment already scheduled, maybe by the end of the week. So you can use here to check if there are any conflict. So I would say now, for instance, I plan to deploy an integration between tomorrow and the end of the week. Okay, you can see here a conflict is automatically raised, showing that be careful, another application version is already scheduled to be deployed in the same time frame. So you can say, okay, I choose another time frame for the deployment, or okay, it doesn't matter, I will use the same time frame. Because maybe there are no dependencies between each application, or maybe because I have several servers for the integration and I can use different servers. So I choose to override the conflict for the demo. So this is the deployment path. So for the demo, I will use integration and productions. The other important content is it's about the request. As I told you, when you define a release packages, you have the ability to associate which user story, which defects, which features will be addressed, will be fixed using this release package. When the developer has committed his modification, he associated the commit to a defect with the reference 73006. So here in release control, there are two options. You can see here is empty. So the first option is to ask Jenkins to automatically add here the defect 73006. So we can do it automatically with Jenkins, or you can do it manually from release control, and we can call our plugins, our Octane plugins, and you can say, okay, for this application version, I know that it should fix a defect. It should fix a defect belonging to the release alpha, and I think the defect should be in fixed phase. So here I'm browsing Octane to retrieve the defect, and here this is the defect coming from Octane, so I can select this defect. For sure, you can select multiple defects, you can select as well different work items. I mean, you can select 3 defects and 2 user stories. You can select 3 defects from Octane and 2 user stories from Jira. So you can associate different objects here in this area. So I mean that for this release control, I know that I will fix this defect. Again, the same as for the release train, I have an history tab showing you all the information about who do what and when. The last interesting tab I would like to discuss about is about the deployment task. So for sure, I know the application version. I know what will be fixed deploying this new application version, but how I will deploy this application version. So in my demo, you can see here there are already predefined activities, because when Jenkins created this release package, Jenkins automatically associated a runbook, a template of tasks. And in this runbook, in this template of tasks, I have already two predefined tasks. The first one is deploy web app, and this task we'll call DA. So this task we call deployment automation to execute the deployment of this new application version. Once deployed successfully, release control will update automatically the Octane defect. You remember the fields I showed you before, deployed in production, deployed in integration, yes or no. So release control will automatically update the defect in Octane. But which defect will be updated? So here you can see it in red. If it is in red, it means that something is missing in terms of configuration. So here, I would like to update this defect. This is a defect I associated using the request tab. So I will update Octane for this using this specific defect. So for sure, you can decide to update defect using this way, but maybe you can as well decide to update user story using another mechanism. So it's why you have to select here which object you want to update using this predefined task, updating Octane. So I think now we should be more or less ready to kick off the deployment. So let's say I'm now the project manager or the product owner, and I say, okay, for me, all the configuration is okay. So I can use accept. So for me, the configuration is okay. So for me, as a project manager or product owner, we can kick off the deployment. Now we move the release package to a new state, ready to deploy. And now I am a release engineer, so I am the guy who will kick off the deployment. So I can check the different information provided by the product manager, for instance. So, okay, that's fine for me. I can see the request, I can see the runbook. And as release engineer, okay, that's fine. Let's kick off. So, kickoff means that release control will first call deployment automation here in progress, and once completed, we'll call Octane. So let's have a look on what happened on deployment automation. So I can use the link, and I arrive in deployment automation. So what's happened here? I see that I'm release control trigger an application deployment process for my Ring2Park online application. Release control call a process called deploy web app. Release control defines that I would like to deploy against integration environment. Now, in deployment automation, you have defined that for the integration environment, in deployment automation, you have defined there is only one machine, one server. The name of the server is ent001.localhost. This is the name of the physical server associated to my logical environment called integration. And now I'm currently deploying against this server the version 1.4.0. Let's have a look on all the elementary steps we use to deploy this application. So this is all the steps you define using deployment automation to deploy my application. The first step, I check on the target server that there is enough space. So I'm checking that I know I need 1 gigabyte available, so I'm checking if I have enough space. If I don't have enough space, I stop the deployment process. Then I download the artifact, so the WAR file is downloaded on the target server. This is a JT application, so I check if the JT server is started. If the JT server is started, I stop the JT server. I do some cleanup activities. I do some backup activities. I restart the JT server. I can call automated test. As I mentioned earlier, we have in Micro Focus automated test solutions for functional testing, performance testing, and security testing. So here you can call those Micro Focus solutions. Here I pause the process. Then here I update Octane. I will show you where Octane is updating using this step. Then here I'm checking that the new application is up and running. And finally I add a status on my specific versions. So for each step I use plugins. As I told you, for deployment automation we provide about 100 plugins, and here you can see the name of the plugin. And for each step, for sure, you can access the log file here. So here you can see the result of the execution of the step. Here I'm stopping the JT servers. On the right bottom corner here, this is email notification. So associated to deployment automation and release control, you can send email notification to ask for an approval or to mention that the deployment is successful. And for each step, you can have parameters. You can have input parameter and output parameters. So here you can see the value for each parameter. So this is all the activity performed by deployment automation triggered by release control to deploy my new application versions. So now let's go back to release control. So here you can see that the deployment is complete in release control. So you have several things to check. The first one for sure is here to see the status of the deployment task. So you can see all the deployment tasks are completed on deployment automation and on Octane. So here, using the link, you can jump into Octane and check as a QA member. I don't want to access release control, or I don't want to access deployment automation. As a QA member, I just have a look here, and I can see here, you see the status of the field. As a QA developer, I can see that this defect has been fixed in integrations. So this field was updated by release control, okay? And here there is another field, a comment field, and this associated to the defect, and this one was updated by deployment automation. So just to show you that Octane can be updated by release control and or by deployment automation. So here you can see the version 1.40 was deployed successfully in integration. So now let's go back to the application itself. So now I would like to check if my fix has been successfully deployed. So let's connect again to my application. Let's go to the help page. And you can see here that the fix was correctly deployed against the production environment. Let's go back to the release package. Here you see that this release package is not is not related to the train. So it depends the use case you want to implement in your organization. You can associate all your release packages to the train and trigger all the deployment for all your application version from the train. Or you can kick off the deployment for each application version at the release package level. So it depends if you want to deploy simultaneously all your application or if you want to deploy each application manually. So if I go back to the train, it should be a webinar train, this one. So before starting the deployment of my release package at the train level, I can say, okay, the development is completed. I would like to link the release package. It was a 104, if I remember well. I would like to link this release package. So you can see now this release package is in QA phase. The deployment is complete for integration. And I have only one release package in this train. And for sure, if you have multiple application versions, here you can see all the application versions. Okay? And from the train, for sure, you can jump into your release package. So I'm at the release package level. I can say, okay, as a QA member, the testing is now successful, so I can use this action to complete the testing. And now we are ready to move into production. But before moving to production, I need an approval from the project manager. Okay, I'm a QA member, and for me that's okay, we can go in production. And you, project manager, is it okay for you? So now I'm the project manager, the product owner, and I use the approval tab, and I say, okay, for me, we can go into production. Okay, for production for my application. So now this release package is ready to be deployed into production. You see here, now there is a link with the train. So using the link, you can go at the train. You can open the train. Okay. So to access the train, you can do it from this shortcut. I show you before. You can use your favorite. So you have different way to access your train. And do you remember when you have defined the train, we have implemented a gate for the QA. And now I'm the QA manager, and I say, and I can specify here, okay, I see that for all applications belonging to the train, I see that all QA activities are successful. So as QA manager, I can say, okay, for me, it's okay, we can go on production for this train. For sure, if few tests are not successful, you can unrelate, you can descope the application, you can remove application for this train. And now, as release manager, I can say, okay, I see that my QA manager told me everything is okay regarding test activities, so we can go and we can start the deployment into production. As release manager, I kick off the deployment into production. But again, you can see here there is another approval. So here, before starting the deployment into production, I need the approval of I need an approval from the production manager, production environment manager, allowing me to start the deployment into production. So as production environment manager, it's as well okay for me. So as prod env manager, okay for me. So for in my demo today, I implemented a lot of gates, lot of approval, just to show you can implement a lot of use cases depending on your own process you have in your own organization. So I'm at the train level, and as release manager, as a QA manager, as a production environment manager, it's okay. We can kick off the deployment into production. To kick off the deployment into production, I told you there are two options. You can kick off the deployment from the train. So if you do it from the train, it means that all application versions belonging to the train will be automatically deployed against the production environment. So this is the use case with the kickoff from the train. Or you can go at the release package level and kick off the deployment from each application, from each release package belonging to the train. So for the demo, I will do it at the release package level. So again, now I'm the deployment engineer, and I'm able to kick off the deployments against the production environment. This is the same kind of operation we use for integrations. So the difference is here, we are deploying into productions. This is in progress. You can use, again, the shortcut, the hyperlink. And here, this is, again, deployment automation. So again, we are deploying the application into Park Online. We use this process. We are deploying against production. And you can see here, we are waiting for an approval. So it's just to illustrate, to show you can define approval in deployment automation as well. So it's just for demo purpose. So, okay, go. So this is, again, email notification, accepting from approval, the approval. And now the deployment has just started into productions. The name of the server associated to the production environment is different. The name is pod 003. This is .localhost. This is the name of the machine. We are deploying the version 140 again, and we use more or less the same deployment process. A few steps are different. The first one, you can see here that the JT server failed. The step to check if the JT server was running failed. So it means that the JT server was not started. So as it was not started, it's not necessary to stop it. So the deployment process automatically skips the stop service. You see, not started, because we don't need it, because the service is not started. So you can continue. You can see here this one is skipped as well, because now we are deploying into production. So we don't need to execute automatic tests. You don't need to execute functional, performance, or security tests, because we are in production. Again, you can implement a pause in your deployment process. I'm updating Octane as well. I remind you this is the comment section in Octane that is currently updated by deployment automation. And I check if the application is up and running. And that's it, job's done. So if I go back to release control, I'm waiting feedback from deployment automation, so I can refresh to check my status. So you can see here now the status is complete. So it means that the deployment is complete. And I can use the link here to open the train. This is email notification again here. And at the train level, you can see that for my application, the deployment into production is complete. And at the train level, I can complete the deployment for the train. So train deployment completed. And the job done. So we have demonstrated a hand-to-hand use case using release control and deployment automation by updating the source code, by deploying this source code against two different environments using different gates to approve or to reject the deployment activities. So when you talk about release management, as I show you in the slide deck, we provide, you need a lot of report to track the activities. So for sure, we provide a lot of report, lot of dashboard helping you to track those activities by status, by time. Sorry, you can implement alert dashboard to mention that a few scheduled activities are being schedules. We can have here different activities defined by owners to know who is responsible for a specific activity now. For the release train, we provide for sure the timeline. So this is here you can see all the timeline. So today we use this train webinar. So we have 4 phases today for this specific train. You can access information as well using a calendar view to access all those release processes activities. So today, this is the 13th of October. Oops, sorry. So you can open the train again. I would like to click here. So today we deploy the webinar train. We use the scope phase, the development phase, the QA phase, and the production phase for this specific train. We have a view to see all the milestones. This is the milestone we have created today about the release note for the webinar train. So you have all those activities available at the train level, but we provide as well the same kind of dashboard and report at the release package level. You can filter by status, by owner. You can access as well activities. You can see the actual. So today, again, we deploy the Ring to Park Online with 140 for integration and productions. So you have this kind of activity tracked using this specific calendar. You can build your own dashboard to add your own report or to add out-of-the-box reports. So here, this is one dashboard I created just to know by type of release, emergency, major, minor, where are those releases in production, in development, and so on, and so on. You can as well implement a Kanban to help you to track the activity of your release packages. So you can see here Kanban with two lines, preparation and deployment. And you can see here that today we have a deploy here the build into production, and the build is complete for the build 140. So this is all the calendar and the dashboard we provide using release control. But using deployment automation, we provide as well this kind of report, this kind of information. We provide a timeline as well. So today we have 13. So we use deployment automation to deploy into production and to into integrations. We have in deployment automation the inventory to help you to know so which version are deployed and where. So today we work on Ring to Park Online, we work on the component Ring to Park Online, the web component, and you can see here the version 140 is deployed into integrations, and the version 140 it's as well deployed into integrations. So this is all the information you can access in terms of reports. We provide as well reports to track the duration of the deployment, the number of failures, the number of deployments, the average duration for a specific deployment, scope by application, by date, by plugin, and so on and so on and so on. So this is all the reporting activities we provide using deployment automation. Just to complete my demo, I would like just to show you how we build a deployment process using deployment automation. So for the demo, I just remind you, we use this deployment process, JT deploy. This is one of the process called by release control. And if you remember well, this is all the steps you saw when we have executed the deployment. First, we check that there is enough space, we download the version, we check the GAT server, and so on and so on. And how do we build this deployment process? We use here the plugins. For instance, you can search for stop plugin. So I would like to stop my Apache Tomcat. So you just need to drag and drop. You just pin your logic like this, and you click on your steps. And here you can specify the name, the working directory, the name, the user, the password. So all the information required to use this step. So it's very easy to build your own deployment process. So that's it for the demo. Let's go back to the slide. I have a few slides to present now. So you should be able to see the slide. Is it okay for you guys? I hope so. So this is just to summarize the benefits of our application release orchestration platforms. So let's talk first about the benefits of release control. So just to remind you, release control improves the availability and the traceability of all your release management processes. It enforces the compliance and the control for sure. It helps you to support multiple platforms. For my demo, I use only distributed system. It was a demo based on Windows, but for sure you can use release control to orchestrate mainframe, Unix, Linux, and Windows flavor. With release control, we see we have a workflow to implement the release train and the release package. This is the workflow we provide out of the box, but just keep in mind because we can customize those workflow. You can customize the release package workflow, you can customize the release train workflow. And we provide integration with third-party tools using providers. You can update the provider we have out of the box. You can create your own provider if required. Now let's have a look on deployment automation benefits. So as I have demonstrated it, you can use deployment automation to simplify, to standardize, to automate all your deployment process. And you can automate the deployment of your application, you can automate the deployment of your infrastructures, and it can be done for one application or it can be done simultaneously for multiple applications. We can address multiple heterogeneous environments, physical, virtual, container, and cloud. And we can use a snapshot to be sure that the components tested together are released together. It is very important to guarantee the integrity of what is deployed on your system. And based our customer survey, we know that reduced application failure in data center production is reduced by up to 90% and cut the time and cost of managing deployment by up to 80%. I added a slide about a few customers we have using our solutions. So as you can see, we have a lot of customers in bank and in insurance. So this is not all the customers we have, but just a subset of customers using our solution with a comment of a few of them. Now we can talk about the pricing. So up to you guys.
Thank you very much, Sylvain. We spent the last 1 hour and a half on presenting the solution, and then we'd like to present a little bit about the matrix for the licensing. Maybe I will switch into Polish. Szanowni Państwo, dziękujemy za dzisiejszy udział i mamy nadzieję, że będziemy mogli dalej współpracować i rozwijać tą tematykę razem z Państwem. Na koniec uwaga na temat w jaki sposób licencje są liczone dla tych dwóch rozwiązań, tak żeby Państwo mogli mniej więcej mieć świadomość, co trzeba policzyć, żeby się przygotować ewentualnie budżetowo czy do zakupów. Release control licencje są udostępniane albo na użytkownika nazwanego, albo na jednocześnie pracujących użytkowników. Można w zasadzie mieć i tak, w zależności od sytuacji konfiguracji w firmie, ponieważ nie wszyscy użytkownicy muszą mieć stały dostęp do systemu, a część użytkowników może właśnie pracować na zasadzie jednoczesnej pracy kilku użytkowników. Udostępniam licencję wieczystą, i roczne wsparcie na rok. Jeśli chodzi o Deployment Automation, to tutaj już mówimy o wdrażaniu tych systemów, w związku z tym nie liczymy użytkowników, a liczymy endpointy, czyli te docelowe maszyny, a w zasadzie można powiedzieć w uproszczeniu docelowe adresy IP, na których Deployment Automation będzie realizował swoje akcje związane z uruchomieniem, wdrażaniem aplikacji, z dostawą jej. Także też wydaje mi się, że bardzo prosto można te licencje przypisać. Sylvain, we have two questions. I'm not sure if we can answer now. Okay?
Yeah. I have more than two questions. The first one is about the deployment of microservices using Kubernetes, Docker containers. So, as I mentioned, we provide out of the box about 100 plugins, and we have one for Docker and another one for Kubernetes, allowing you to manage the Docker deployment, allowing you to manage the Kubernetes activities. So we provide out of the box those kind of plugins helping you to implement the use cases you talk about. The next one is about the capacity management. How do you organize business requirements versus your human capacities to plan the scope and show it to the business? I think this topic is addressed by Octane. So it was not the plan today to go deeper in Octane, but I think you can go back to my friend in Poland and maybe to organize a specific workshop for you to demonstrate how Octane can help you in this specific content. I have other question. What is the architecture of for deployment automation? So to use deployment automation, you need to install it for sure, and the requirement is a SQL Server and or Oracle database, and the deployment automation is hosted on a Tomcat server. We provide this Tomcat server out of the box. Another question, so what is the frequency of new releases for deployment automation and release control? We provide two main releases per year for deployment automation and release control. Another question about how to deploy an application into a DMZ. So this is an interesting question. So lot of organizations have DMZ, for instance, for the production environment, and where it's not possible to deploy artifacts from another part of the network. So with deployment automation, we offer the ability to replicate the deployment automation repository, and it allows you to export application version, deployment process outside the DMZ and to re-import it inside the DMZ without any communication between those two areas. So this is a replication feature we offer out of the box. The last question is about web services. Do you offer web services to query release control and deployment automation? Yes. So during my demo, I shown the ability to execute action from Jenkins. So from Jenkins, using Jenkins, we provide a plugin, specific plugin, but we provide as well web services, REST and SOAP web services, allowing you to query, to execute, to read information hosted into release control and or deployment automation. That's it for all the questions we have in the panel.
Okay, so thank you very much. I na podsumowanie chciałem zaprosić Państwa do kontaktu tutaj z nami. Maile nasze będą dostępne w panelu, gdzie są linki i dodatkowe materiały, kopia tej prezentacji. Będziemy się starali też z Państwem w jakiś sposób skontaktować, żeby rozwinąć tą współpracę. Ewentualnie jest możliwość doprecyzowania potrzeb. Także dziękujemy serdecznie, no i pozostajemy w kontakcie. Thank you very much, Sylvain, and see you next time on the other seminar. Bye-bye.
Bye.